David. Hey, Pivot Shift Ahead. This is Vija Williams, and I have got the amazing Sarah Reynolds with me, and we're continuing our dolls series. So for the Ben Kinney companies, I always do webinars, and we do Wednesday webinars, and then sometimes we do Friday webinars for our leadership mentoring program. And this week and next week, I'm featuring my co-host from the Empire Building podcast. So I interviewed Wendy Papasan on Wednesday. We've got Sarah Reynolds today, and I have Seychelle Van Poel. I believe it's next Friday. Hattie, you're going to have to remind me when that date is, but
that's awesome.
And you know, full disclosure, Sarah and I are very close. I'm close with all of my dolls, as we call ourselves. So sometimes when I do these interviews, it can get a little casual because we know each other so well. So hopefully that's okay. Wanted to start by saying this. A lot of the times when I do these interviews, Sarah, I go into biography and we kind of walk through, all the steps that got people to where they are. I'm not going to do that this time. Episode 4 of the Empire Building podcast, and by the way, you can get on anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, wherever. And you can search Empire Building, and you can subscribe to our podcast. On episode 4, Sarah gives a phenomenal bio and origin story. And I highly recommend you listen to that. It's well documented, and there's no real reason, Sarah, for us to kind of walk through that again since you already do it. Yeah. Plus, I want to unabashedly get people to listen to our podcast, right?
Yeah, of course.
So we're not going to start there. So we're going to start where you are. I think that there's so much going on in the world. I really want to make sure that we make time at the end to talk about that. And it's really important to me, and I know to you, Sarah, that we spend some time together talking about the role of business leaders in this new world, right?
Yeah.
So welcome.
It's not a new world, but
yeah, fair enough. That, you know what? Thank you for correcting me. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm super excited to be here.
I know.
So I've learned so much from all of these Friday interviews. And so anyone watching that hasn't watched previous ones, definitely make time to do that, because I have watched all of them and I've learned so much from each of these interviews. So I'm just excited and honored to be here with, one of my besties, and at the same time, want to provide value today. So I'm excited.
Thank you for saying that. I interviewed Bo and Kimber Mankiti a while back, and then Ben Kinney and Chris Suarez so far this year, and it's just been, I learned so much. When I prepare to interview you guys, and I just learned so much. It's made me a better person. So thank you very much for saying that. So Sarah, you're out of Washington D.C., Maryland, Virginia primarily. Do you want to kind of walk us through what your business looks like today?
Sure. So we are outside of Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia is where our hub is located. So it's about 30 minutes from our capital, our nation's capital. About 5 years ago, we expanded to Washington, D.C. proper and Maryland. So a lot of the population that works in D.C. actually doesn't live in D.C. And so we sort of target the suburbia world of Washington, D.C., both in Maryland, Virginia, and of course, D.C. And then a few years ago, we also expanded to Richmond, Virginia, which is the capital of Virginia. And then this year we expanded to Atlanta, Georgia. So what our business sort of looks like is we have multiple departments. We have our executive leadership team that is overseeing their own departments. We have a marketing department who's primarily lead generation focused. We have our inside sales department, and their roles are to book appointments for outside sales agents who are our agent partners. And then we have a success team, which is our administrative team. And then a newer department we started a couple years ago, which is client care, all around communication. And then we also have an amazing VA team in the Philippines. So we have about 12 VAs in the Philippines. This year, right now, we're on pace to do about $14 million in gross commission income, which will be pretty Pretty tremendous growth. Last year,
tremendous growth.
Yeah, last year we did 10 million. So a pretty big jump. Thanks to my amazing team that's been working so hard to make it happen. So
yeah, and I can't wait to dive into, the fundamentals of why that happened. Tell us about your personal life. You have a beautiful family, and I'd love to just talk about that for a minute.
Yes. I've been married 11 years to my amazing husband, George. We dated for 5 years. So we've been together 16 and a half years now.
Wow.
Yes. And he's truly the love of my life, honestly. And I love being married to him. And then I have 3 beautiful children. I have 2 daughters, 7-year-old, almost 5-year-old, less than 1 month away from her 5-year birthday. Yeah. And then my baby, Lincoln, I got my boy. And so he just turned 1 last week.
Your very big boy. He is just massive. He's
98% percentile on height, on weight, on everything.
I put a picture. I could not resist putting a picture of Lincoln in all the promo because the dolls love Lincoln.
Well, let's be serious. He's the one that got most of the viewers.
Completely. Yeah. He's adorable. He's so the cutest thing ever.
Yes.
And I think it's fair to say that we should announce to the world that we're also business partners, right? We both own Amplify together.
Yes, of course. So
we're obviously co-hosts of a podcast together. So
yes. So I'm a proud partner with the Vropra Real Estate through Amplify, and then also our Empire Building podcast. And so that's sort of our side hustle, I guess.
We should start making people, like, anytime like they promote one of my interviews, they just need to hashtag Vopra. That just needs to be my new hashtag.
Yep. It's going to go viral.
It's, I tried to buy the domain name and it was taken. So somebody's got Vopra. I know. Darn it.
It's a good one.
Darn it. All right. Well, here's where I want to start. Where I want to start is, and admittedly, I'm cheating because I know you very well and I know your business very well. So that's good. It's good to cheat. I remember talking to you before about your business success because you took over the business when? How many years ago, Sarah?
2009. So 11 years ago.
Perfect. I was going to say 10 and a half years. Sorry, I was so far off. So 11 years. And you said to me before that you worked really hard your first 5 years to build a foundation, and your hockey stick growth didn't really happen until the last 5 years of this, right? So can you walk us through what that foundation meant to you, what it was, and how you, first of all, I'm just in awe that in your 20s you had that clarity, by the way, like kudos to you for having that. But what was the foundation that you talk about?
Yeah, I mean, to speak on my age in the beginning, I think a big part of that, I'm a pastor's daughter. And if anyone's listening, that's a PK. You have to grow up fast. And I think that's part of it. It's a blessing to me in my life because that has helped me. But what do you feel has, is the question like to allow the hockey stick?
What is the business foundation of the Reynolds team? That's the question.
Okay. So the question is all around our lead gen systems and follow-up systems. And so for us, it was really mastering the inside sales department and really mastering booking appointments over the phone and making sure that we're setting up our agents for success. But it took me about 5 years to figure it out. And so both at times figuring it out and then failing forward, but then also getting the right people in the organization to grow. But a lot of it was around the systems and the follow-up systems. One of the things that I realized pretty early on is how much business is lost in each of our businesses. And when I looked at that, I realized, okay, that year I started diving into my system. We had a couple ISAs, and this was about 8 or 9 years ago. And I started looking in my system and realizing people would talk to someone and have an intent to follow up with them, and then they wouldn't follow up. So I was looking at my system and I saw all this money that was lost because what was happening was that our ISA would talk to someone and they would say, I'm planning on moving this spring. And then the ISA gets distracted because the phone rings and then, or they go do something else and then they don't set the next step. And how often that happens when you're dealing with salespeople because we're not good at details. And so one of the key hires that I made and one of the key systems that we put together was this idea of a database manager, a database sort of checker, who is a high C, high detail oriented person that basically goes behind all of our sales team and is constantly finding things that we would have lost. That took a while to get all of that figured out. Once we got that figured out, honestly, it was a matter of having more people. So when I say foundations, what I mean is the systems in place for lead generation at a high level. People is one thing. A lot of people will focus on people first before they put the systems in place. And for me, we focused on the foundational systems first.
Oh, if anyone's taking notes on this, that right there, I couldn't agree more. The systems are the foundation.
Yes, the systems are the foundation, because the last thing you want to do is hire someone talented and then you put them in a position to fail because you did not have the systems in place for them to succeed.
That's so
when you have the systems in place, you can almost teach anyone to succeed if it's a strong enough system.
That's right.
And so for me, it was like getting that working, getting that in place. And then all of a sudden we just started adding people. And then you see us have this huge hockey stick growth. I mean, our average growth over the last 5 years has been 54%.
Yeah, it's massive.
And I mean, what, 5 years ago, we were a $2 million business.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
When 20% annual growth is considered a really strong, healthy, growing business. I mean, just to give perspective to everybody, it's a shocking number. You know what I hear when I hear you describe that, Sarah, is I hear you did the perfect thing, which is you discovered a problem and you came up with a solution. And that leads into, as you and I both know, an incredible value proposition now for bringing the right talent into your team, because agents really struggle with A, appointments, and B, database marketing. And you immediately identified those are two core problems with agents. And if I'm going to get anywhere and attract talent and I got to solve these problems, it's going to grow my business. It's going to help me get people to grow my business.
Yeah, I mean, I looked around. I mean, I've always been super involved in our Keller Williams office, and I would look around and I would see these agents come into the industry, get their license. And I would talk to them. They were the best people, like the heart to serve. I would ask them, why are you getting your real estate license? They want to help people. They want to help serve people. And they didn't know how. And then a year later, they'd be gone.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing this time and time again. And I was like, these are amazing people that need to be out there serving because they have the best heart. They just don't know how to get in front of the people to help them. And so I was like, if I can figure that piece out and become really a master at it, and I believe I am. I mean, I don't think, I will say very confidently, I'm the best at it in the industry.
That's fantastic.
And if you can become the best at that, and then you find people that have the heart to serve people, I mean, that's where the magic happens. Yeah. I mean, because that's what you want. People that have the heart to serve your clients, to convert at a high level, and focus on that while I focus on, making it rain basically at a really high level. So
you had and you still have an incredible clear vision, Sarah, an incredible clear vision of where you wanted your company to go and where you personally knew that you had the strength to lead, I think.
Yes. Yep. And I think that's been a big focus for me, is on staying within my sort of strength zone, which has a lot to do with lead generation, and numbers and watching things and tweaking things and focusing on that, and then hiring talented individuals around me that sort of balance out the things that, God didn't really make me to do, but finding people that do have those strengths and then putting them in place for them to succeed.
So what are the core attributes that you do have specifically that have caused you to be successful, do you think?
I don't quit. I don't give up on, if I'm going to start a lead gen system, I don't start it and stop. There's not one lead gen system that I know of that I've started and stopped. And so I when I make a decision, like you can't let me, I'm stubborn. Like I will not, I will figure it out. I'm the same with people, which can be both a huge strength. It can also be a weakness at times, because I many times want for them, I see in them so much potential that sometimes they don't even see in themselves. And I do my best to help get them there, but I've learned you can't always get them there. Yeah. And so for me though, but like, I don't give up on those. When I'm committed to something, I commit and I figure it out. And I think that that's been a really big key to my success is that. And then really always be learning, right? I mean, I think if you, most of my time is spent learning and growing, and I never feel like I've arrived or that I've gotten to the point of like mastery really, and constantly be learning and growing. And, you know, I can't, we were talking about the other day in our chat about how like, people see this industry. Sometimes you see people as like a number, like, right. Like mm-hmm. What ranking are you with Keller Williams? Mm-hmm. Like, or, you know, how much gross commission income have you done? And how awful that feels for horrible when people treat you that way. And I think I learn as much from someone selling 30 homes a year to someone selling 2,000 homes a year, honestly. Because a lot of times the people that are selling 30 homes a year, they're specializing in something. And sometimes I haven't specialized in that. And so I think constantly being learning based has been a key for me too. But that's a hard question, Vija.
Well, if you don't quit, right, and you can be stubborn at times, your own words, can you become a steamroller sometimes?
What? That word has never been defined as part of service. Yes, I can for sure be a steamroller.
It takes one to know one, my friend.
That is no question. I can be a steamroller, and that's both a positive and a negative, right?
That's right.
No question. Because once I set it's to get Sarah to stray from when she's made a decision is like very hard to do, and so I can steamroll. That's for sure.
So do you spend a lot of time getting buy-in then from your people, from your team, from your staff, from your agents, from your organization when you're going to launch a new initiative then? Is there upfront time there?
Yes. So I've learned, a big portion of my organization are high S's. And so high S's biggest fear is change.
And for those of you who don't know what that means, it's a DISC, D-I-S-C. It's a 4 personality quadrants, essentially. D would be dominant, and I is a people, sociable, influential. S is steady, low risk tolerance, right? And a C is analytical, engineer type person.
Yep. So what I learned, and I actually have some S in me, which people get really surprised by. The D and the I are tied, and then I have a strong S as well. And so because of that, I can feel when, okay, we're about to make a change, and I have sort of a system around, like, first I sort of make a hint around it, possibly even a joke. And then I continue to talk about it to get people's buy-in. But one of the things that's really helped me is the book called Multipliers, because to be honest, I've always felt like I was really strong in getting buy-in until I read that book. And I realized, man, I need to get stronger buy-in from my organization. And then also, I'm not the only one with good ideas. And that book talks about, the best asset that someone brings to your organization is their mind. Mm-hmm. And do you have a system around making sure that you're tapping into their mind, because they have ideas, they see things that we don't see depending on what their position is, and making sure that you have an organization that you want to multiply people's mind. You want them to be able to come up with ideas and strategies and how to fix something without always even coming to you. And I never felt like the book talks about a multiplier versus a diminisher. If you would have asked me beforehand, are you a diminisher? I would have said, absolutely not. When I read the book, I started realizing, you know what? I do have some diminishing qualities, and that can happen when we're stubborn and steamrolling, right? Because we think our way is the best way, or we've made a decision. But to really like, what's that analogy, right? Our organization is like moving a cruise ship, right? It's on a speedboat.
Yeah.
And so to do that now, I mean, we're up to 108 team family members. To do that, we have to make sure we get people's buy-in, especially the leadership team buy-in, because they're now the ones that are really making it happen. So.
Well, yeah. And, I think part of the reason part of the reason I steamrolled, I'll speak for myself, is that you feel threatened when you are so passionately, adamantly attached to a directive for your business. Asking for input could cause people to poke holes in it. And it could cause people to, potentially try to talk you out of it or not be bought in. And so I think
that's interesting you say that. Sorry to cut you off, but that's interesting you say that. You know what it is for me, I think?
What's up?
It's speed.
Yeah.
I'm fast moving once I make a decision. I remember we were talking with Lindy, our expansion partner in Atlanta, and my coach was interviewing her. And he said, are you going to be okay? Just so you know, Sarah's one of the fastest leaders I've ever seen. Are you going to be okay with her making a decision and then moving fast? Will you keep up with her, basically? Because you're going to have to keep up. And I had never heard someone describe me as that. I mean, my team will tell you I'm that. Yeah. But I think that was really, for me, a lot of times I feel like getting the buy-in slows me down.
Yep.
But that's good.
Yeah.
Right? I've learned to embrace that. I've learned to embrace the slowness, because you can actually get there faster when you get the buy-in, because they're going to be pushing you too. But when you're the one dragging them, right, you're not going to get there as fast. And so for me, a lot of it was like slowing down to get the buy-in is like, oh, it's going to take longer. I viewed it as it was going to take longer versus really focusing on getting there quicker. So.
Yeah, it's a pretty typical leadership journey that I've experienced, frankly, just interviewing people, that a lot of us start pulling people up the mountain. And in reality, when we become better leaders, our people are pushing us up.
Yes.
Right. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So what do you think are some of the major dominoes that your business had that propelled you to success?
So, I mean, first and foremost was making sure that we had those lead gen systems in place. I mean, the biggest mistake I see people make is growing a team without that, right? I mean, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent is very clear. You grow when you have an overflow of leads. When you have too much business to handle, that's when you hire. And so that's first and foremost, is following that. I still follow that to today. And so if I'm not confident I can do that, then we don't bring on people.
Sarah, that is so important. I coach hundreds of agents. We have 1,300 agents in our organization, and I coach and talk and teach to them. And I cannot stress how important that is, because I did it the wrong way, because I didn't do it that way. And leads have got to be the foundation of your business. Leads, listings, leverage, in that order.
Exactly. Yep. And the other thing, I had an aha. V and I just got done recording a few episodes for our podcast, and I was staying silent, but I was having a big aha moment while we were recording, because we were talking about the fear of our people in terms of us getting bigger. Mm-hmm. And you brought up a conversation you had with Ben around this topic when you were afraid, right? And he said, I don't feel like we're going to fail because of our size, right? Mm-hmm. We're big now. And my aha was like, okay, if you look back, we had, like I said, an average of 54% growth over the last 5 years. And you asked me, what are the sort of sequential things? So the foundation of lead gen. The second thing that I had the aha on when we were talking was my mindset. Mm. We didn't talk about it on the podcast, but I almost mentioned, I have been afraid of getting too big. Mm. A lot of leaders, I've seen it the reverse. But for me, it was my fear. And I used to look at these organizations and say, well, they're doing that because I used to count the agents. I don't know. And say, well, they're doing that many deals. Yeah, they're doing that many deals because they have 12 agents or whatever it might be, right? 5 years ago, I had a mindset shift. And I changed my mind about being big, about growing a big organization. And if you talk about dominoes of success, honestly, I was holding my organization back.
What were you scared of, Sarah? What about being big scared you?
So in my top 5 strengths, so Strength Finders is something I highly recommend if you've never done that. In my top 5 strengths, one of them is called relator. And there are people that have woo, which is winning over others over, and they think they have all these friendships, but really they have like 1,000 friendships, right? I don't have a lot of friendships, but my friendships go deep. And I'm like that with my team members. And so what scared me is not having the ability to have that relationship with 100 people. And it still scares me.
Yeah.
If I could wave a magic wand, I would have enough time to like go to lunch with each of my team members every single week, because I love them so much and I want to have this deep relationship with them. And when you grow, you can't. And I was petrified of how in the world could I have someone in my organization that I don't know everything about them, that I'm not, really close, because I was so used to being close to everyone. So I was very scared of like the possibility of having people in my organization that I didn't have a deep relationship with. And what I learned is that, okay, I can go deep with my key people, and then it's up to them then to turn around and have deep relationships with their team members, right? And so I had to change. Yeah, I had to change my mindset around that, but that took a long time. So that was another big domino. Once I had that mindset shift, it was like, it was done.
How far into it would you say you had that fundamental shift?
5 years.
About 5 years. So that was the mark, really.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was a big moment for me, was that, like, you know what, Ben, I learned so much from Ben, and Ben says, to have Navy SEALs, you have to have a Navy.
Yeah. Ben Kinney is who she's.
Ben Kinney. Yes. And so, he's absolutely right. Right. And so for me, it was like, yeah, we've got to grow. Yeah. And for me, you can't impact thousands. My goal is millions of people one day to be impacted by what my organization does in the future. And you can't do that with 4 people.
Sarah, what drives that? What drives that goal of millions of people and such a big goal, a big vision?
I think, this webinar or whatever we're on isn't supposed to be about strength finders, but I think another one of my strengths is significance. And with significance, you want to have a significance in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And I get a lot of passion around changing people's lives. Honestly, if you look, that was a key moment, was when I first hired my first buyer's agent, and she sent me a text basically telling me she was paying for her family vacation, paying for everyone to go. And she said, because of you, I'm able to create this life now that is truly her big life, the life that she wanted to have. And ever since then, I've been addicted to changing people's lives. And honestly, it's a little selfish. Because I get so much joy out of seeing their life change, and I just continually do that. I tell my team members all the time, I'm no longer on the front lines helping buyers and sellers, but I'm like, please share with me the stories. Like, when we change a life, I want to know about it. Yeah. And so they're constantly sending me stories when we're changing the lives of our team members. I want to know about it. I just am so driven around life change and making an influence on those around me.
It's funny. I had to look it up just now when you were talking, because I was like, that sounds exactly like me. Why do I do these webinars? Why do I do this podcast? And why do I do Amplify? And it's my number 4 is significant.
Yes. Yeah, I see that in you, Vija, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about Dominoes, and I know that along this journey, I know firsthand, there are fun parts of it and there are not fun parts. So I'm curious, what motivates and inspires you, Sarah? And then what drains you?
What motivates and inspires me, honestly, is impacting people's lives. Like I said. But people are both answers.
Yeah.
So
right.
People both motivate and inspire me to keep going. They also at times will drain me, right? Because if I see so much, my director of ops will say, like, one of my superpowers is, like, I see the good in everyone, and then I can see, like, where they really can shine. Mm-hmm. And I want them to get there as quickly as possible. And so sometimes they're not disappointed at all, but sometimes I'm disappointed because I'm like, get there faster, And I remember my first hire, she said to me, I want you to take time to understand what I really want out of my life, not what you want out of my life. And it was a hard moment, but it was important for me to understand, because, like, I wanted all these people to do what I thought they should do, right? Or what I thought they should accomplish, but really they have their own goals and their own dreams. But honestly, it's all around people. I both love changing people's lives. I both sometimes get drained when either we disappoint others or they disappoint us, or whatever it might be. It can be draining. So,
I had someone ask me once, Sarah, that reminded me, they said, why did you go into leadership? Because, I sort of grew this team and set it aside, really, and came to work for Ben and the Ben Kinney companies and help lead our brokerages division and our mortgage, title, and escrow. They were like, why did you go into leadership? And I remember saying, I go, at a certain point, I remember early in my career, I was, absolutely motivated and inspired by changing people's lives across kitchen tables. And that meant working with buyers, working with sellers, right? Changing their lives by doing that. And once I started my team, I realized what was driving me way more, like exponentially more, was impacting the lives of my employees and my agents to create careers for themselves. You mentioned it earlier on about seeing people, go on vacations, buy homes, buy investment properties, right? Buy cars.
Yes.
Send their kids to private school or whatever it is. Yeah. That motivated me way more. And it's almost addicting, isn't it?
Oh, I'm completely addicted.
I am.
I'll be the first.
Totally addicted.
Yeah, totally addicted. Yeah. And that's why it's like, people ask, like, so are you going to stop? Like, have you reached enough? And I'm like, never. No way. Like, there's a lot more lives to impact and a lot more lives to change. And my people have amazing goals for themselves, and not every goal has been reached, And so it's like, no, I'm absolutely addicted for sure.
What do you love that your people say about you?
What do I love that they say about me? That I love and care about them. I'm, and that sounds simple.
You know what your mom just answered? Your laugh. Oh, thank you, Debbie.
They do say that a lot. Whenever I've gone on maternity leave, that's the first thing when I come back into the office, everyone says, we missed your laugh. You have the best laugh. Lincoln has my laugh. And so it makes me smile every time. But I think that what I like, I'm super results oriented, like extremely results oriented, but I do my best to see my people as people and not like, how many deals are you going to do, type of thing. Yeah. And I think they constantly remind me of how much they appreciate that about me. And, last year we had a team member that went through a really hard time, and he was someone that had always been an amazing contributor, an amazing producer, and he hit some hard times. And he talked to me privately about it. And, I told him, I said, we're going to support you. I don't know how long this is going to take, but we're going to support you. And after it all, after everything happened, he sent me a note and he said, "You saved my life." Hmm. And he said, most bosses would have looked at the performance and said, well, if you can't do the job, you're out. And he said, but you didn't. You understood, you were there for me, and you literally saved my life. And I think out of anything that could be said, I mean, what we do in leadership matters. And so, yes, you can be results oriented. And believe me, like, you don't get to a business my size without being results oriented, but what's the result of your people's heart, and making sure that you are seeing them as a person too, right? And so it's a relationship. When someone comes in my organization, you know, I don't view it, I wouldn't put it on the same level as my marriage with George, but it's like a little bit notch below. I'm going to commit to them, and then I want them to commit to me, and to commit to our organization. And when you do that, just like a marriage, right? You're going to have moments that it's going to be a struggle. You're going to have moments where you're going to fall on hard times. Right. You're going to have moments where you fight all the time, you know, and it's like, are you committed to the person? Are you committed to helping them achieve their goals and what they set out for themselves? And when you do that, I think you get the buy-in. Talk about buy-in. I mean, you get massive buy-in, and just seeing your people as people. And I think my people say that about me on a regular basis, is that you see me as a person, as a mom, as a dad, as a, you know, and you make sure that we're looking at, I'm looking at each person as a person, not just what do they bring to the organization, right? So I think that that's the main thing.
Hey, thank you for going there for us. I really
I do. I was not expecting that. So look at Vropa.
Are you comfortable in that position of being vulnerable like you just were?
I am. Yeah, I am. I'm that way with my team.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really important role model for people to see. And I knew the answer to that, but I wanted you to say it so that everybody watching can know that and see that the, you know, the number one team in the company has absolutely no regrets or, you know, compunction with crying if she's going to cry. Right.
And I think, yes, absolutely. And I think that, you know, the other thing that I think my team will tell you is, like, I'm super vulnerable and authentic with them. And at times I've had to share with them the struggles I've had. I mean, remember when the pandemic first started, I said, guys, I'm scared right there with you. Like, let's be serious. Like, you know, like, I'm okay saying that. But what I do know is that this group is going to get through this, because we're champions. Yeah. And so we can have, you know, fear is actually I think it was mentioned on the Michael Jordan, what was that called? Last Dance documentary. And it said fear is actually a survival instinct.
Yep.
And so that's actually how we survive. Turn that around. But I think a lot of leaders were afraid to tell their team, hey, I'm scared too. Right. And I think that's been a key too, is just like, you're a person. I was that way with my clients at times, you know, like, just say how it is, be authentic, be yourself. And I think that goes a really long way. That gives them the freedom to be the same. Right. When you do that. So
what do you fear, Sarah?
Letting people down. And I put a lot of pressure on myself. And a lot of people would say, well, how do you know whether or not you let them down? You know? And it's like, oh, I don't know. All I know is I don't want to let them down. I mean, I think about all those that believed in me. Like, I mean, it's really easy now. Like, I'm talking, it's so easy now to say, like, you know, oh, the Reynolds team is this and the Reynolds team is that, and Sarah's this and Sarah's that, you know, but there's a group of people that said that before anyone knew, you know, and they knew. And I, in the back of my mind, I want to make sure that we set out what we all said we wanted to accomplish together. You know, it wasn't even just my dreams it was their dreams and their vision too. And so just letting them down. And it's funny, because you had said that Ben said that he doesn't fear it going away, or I can't remember what the word was.
Well, the story with that, I thought about, jumping in earlier when you said it, and this is a tease for the podcast because I told this story, but the story is one day when I was in the midst of building my team, I had gone from like $200,000 revenue to like $1.7 million in, like 3 years. It was really quick. And, as I was kind of cresting that one, it was in the 1.5 million point. I just kind of I woke up one morning in a little bit of a panic, like it was all going to go away. It was like a fantasy, like it was too good to be true. It's like the house of cards was going to fall down. And I called Ben, who was by then an extremely close mentor and friend. He was almost like a business partner at that point. He was super involved in my business. And I called him and he answered back when he answered the phone. And I said, Ben, do you ever feel like it's just all going to go away? And he said, no. I don't anymore because my organization's really big now. And, there's a time maybe, but no, I really don't. It's very big now and deep and wide. And I don't fear that. And that really,
I do.
Yeah, you still do.
Yeah. Which is crazy. Cause like, I don't know when that was, but my guess is my organization's bigger than whatever that was for him. But for whatever reason, I do, like I'm paranoid all the time. I feel like it's like a paranoia of just
you and I are also wired that way a little bit. And actually so is Ben, which is funny. All three of us are wired to sort of be 3 steps ahead and look for the other shoe to drop, admittedly.
And I think that's the other piece of it is like almost, at this level now, like every decision I make has massive consequences, both good and bad. Yeah. Right. And I used to be a much faster decision maker.
Yeah.
And I am very slow now.
Yeah.
And I almost, and I don't know if fear is the right word, but I definitely have a big pause before making a decision. I mean, last year we made a huge decision to break our hub team up into areas and have area growth leaders because we service this massive DC metro market. And honestly, like I should have made it probably 1.5 years before I actually made the decision. Because of the magnitude of the decision, I knew that decision is going to either make or break our company. And so at times I fear making a wrong decision. And so it takes me sometimes a long time to make a decision because I'm almost, I don't know if paralyzed is the right word, but I definitely like pause.
It's, Sarah, I'm gonna not push back on that, but I'm gonna exhort the pause because we do need to, in some situations, move slow to move fast, and that is simply, in my mind, maturity, discernment, and wisdom. And when we start having double digits in front of the people whose lives are affected by our decisions, it would be unnatural and improper to make big decisions fast. So that just comes with, the mantle of leadership, I think.
Yeah. Yep. And the bigger you are, the more, every decision impacts more people and more families. I remember this was years ago, and we did a team event. So we've always done, when we reached our quarterly goal, we've always done this big celebration. And I cannot wait till this whole time is done to have a big celebration with my team. Yeah. And we did a big celebration, and there was like 15 of us, which I thought was big. And I was sitting behind them, and I had invited all their spouses. And so their spouses we were watching something. So their spouses were all beside them, and they had their arms around they were together, right? Each couple, sort of. And George and I were sitting behind them. And when I saw them and their spouse sitting beside them, and I'm behind them, I had a panic attack. Like I legit had a panic attack. I had to get up. I had to walk out because seeing the visual of not only have they put all of their trust and decided to follow, right? Decided to be part of our organization, what we're about. Their spouse is here supporting them and cheering them on. And they've made that decision too. And the weight of it was just like, oh my goodness, like on my shoulders was like, we need to make the right decisions because it's not just their life, it's their family's lives. And I still feel that, and I still get overwhelmed, and it's like decision-making can be scary.
Yeah.
And so if talk about what fears you have, I think that's it. Making the right decisions. I want to always make the right decisions for my organization and for the people in it. So.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think for all the people watching who might feel a little bit like your business is unattainable, I'm just going to say it. There's a lot of people watching who can't even fathom 10 or $15 million in gross commission income, right? I want to remind everybody that, I had an agent come to me during coaching and she said, how do you run a business? I've got with 3 kids, because I have 3 kids. She said, how do you run a thriving real estate business? I'm involved in 13 different entities and the leading or operating of them. And she said, I'd like to have a coaching session with you about it. So we did. And so I said, okay, how old are your kids? She goes, well, I don't have kids yet. I said, okay, but I thought that we were having a coaching session about, how to run an empire with 3 kids. She said, well, I'm just planning because I want to have 3 kids. And I said, oh, then let me tell you how to do it. She's like, great. We were on Zoom. This was during COVID. She goes, great. And I go, okay, here's the first thing. When you give birth, you don't give birth to a 19-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 10-year-old like I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happens is you give birth to a newborn, but before that, you're pregnant. So first of all, you figure out how to run an empire while you're pregnant. And let me explain to you what that means is politely doing a listing presentation, excusing yourself to use their restroom and puking and coming back. That's what that looks like, right? And then what happens is you give birth to this beautiful newborn. And then you have to figure out how to run an empire with a newborn, right? Yeah. And then that newborn starts crawling, and then you have to start to figure out whatever. And I go, and it doesn't just happen that one day you snap your fingers for most people and you have 3 kids like that. And so what you're describing, Sarah, is, 10, 11 years down the road, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And that's part of the growth. And I just felt like it's important to make sure that people watching who are just one single agent and they have these aspirations to be the next Sarah Reynolds, that they understand Sarah didn't know this 11 years ago, guys.
Well, the thing is, Sarah still has doubts, like 2 years ago, was it 2 or 3 years ago, our gross commission income we were on pace to do 5 million. Mm-hmm. And, I come from a pastor's family, I mentioned, never had huge income. My grandparents were blue collar workers, and so I don't come from money, I don't come from even having the knowledge of what to do with money even. Right. And I remember, I was here in this office right here. And I was seeing the numbers of our business and seeing the magnitude of it. And I said to someone, it might have even been my mom, I really think we need to hire a leader that knows what she's doing. I said, because I don't know. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never ran a $5 million organization. I have no idea. I'm going to make a massive mistake and it's going to cost us millions of dollars because I don't know. We should probably go hire someone. I reached my leadership lid, right? Yeah. We should probably go hire someone to come lead us because I certainly am not the right person. And that's how I felt for that whole year. I was almost paralyzed thinking and almost looking like, okay, we should probably look at hiring someone. What I realized is that, you got to change who you surround yourself with. You've got to start asking questions. And I believe I believe I'm a strong believer in God. And I started praying, give me the knowledge and the wherewithal to lead my team if that's what I'm supposed to be doing right now. If not, give me the path to find the person that is. And for me, it was like when we talk about not giving up, right? Part of not giving up is sometimes learning things that you don't feel like you have the ability to do to begin with. And so when it's faced with you and you have that stubbornness of not giving up, you're going to figure it out. And then now my business has sort of even past that, right? And I feel more confident because I've been able to make decisions along the way. And so I think it can be scary when you hear of these large numbers. And at times I feel inadequate when I'm talking to someone that has, larger numbers and things like that. But at the same time, it's just like you said, Vija, it's one step at a time. You figure it out as it goes. And as your business grows, you become a better leader. You surround yourself with stronger leaders. All of a sudden you're getting into rooms that you never imagined you would get in before, right? And then they're pouring into you and you're learning. And I mean, that's really how we've done it, is just continuing to grow and to learn. And it comes back to those foundational things. So
really, really well said. And speaking of getting into rooms and having seats at tables, Sarah, I'd love to spend our last few minutes together talking about current events. And I think you bring such a phenomenal perspective to this, because you're a white business owner and you're married to a Black man and have 3 beautiful Black children, right? And so this has been your world, right? This is nothing new to you, right?
yeah.
And I'd love to kind of learn a little bit more about, what do you know for sure this week that you didn't know last week, right? That you didn't know before all this happened. What have you learned, and where do you think we go from here?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a sensitive topic that obviously is very dear to my heart. I mean, the man that I love with all that I am is Black, and it has definitely given me a different perspective. I remember, growing up in Northern Virginia. So Northern Virginia, the DC metro market, they call it a mixing bowl.
Okay.
And why they do is because it's extremely diverse. So much diversity. And I remember going to college in Southern Virginia, and it was very segregated. And I grew up being around all types of people, all types of nationalities, all types of skin colors, and I did not even get it. I did not get what in the world is going on. And I realized the different parts of the country. And when George and I got married, he moved up to Northern Virginia, and I thought we were sort of like hidden from this. Like I did, because I was like, it's so diverse. Mm-hmm. And I remember this was our first year of being married. He had gone to the gym in our community, and he said, babe, I've got to talk to you about something. The gym manager pulled me aside and said that a white woman said that I tried to assault her. And I was like, what? He said, yeah, she's made up this story about me, and I don't know what's going to happen. This is it was awful. And I was like, okay. And so he said, the gym owner thankfully has cameras, so they're going to look at them tonight, but they wanted to give me a heads up that, something is up here. And he said, I think it's the woman that called me the N-word. And he had gone and tried to help her. She was so he's all into working out and knows everything about positions, that you're supposed to do it right and not hurt yourself. And she was doing something that could cause injury. So he came over to her, didn't come too close, but came over and said, hey, can I show you how you should do it to make sure you don't hurt yourself? And she said, get away from me, you.
Wow.
And yes. Mm-hmm. And I was like, he had already told me that. And so I was like, okay. Well, thankfully the gym owner had cameras and saw that none of that, what she had said happened. And I was like, it was a whole new world. I can tell you different stories. He has a British accent, and he's a lender, and he's had people that wanted to work with him. And then when they come to meet him, because he sounds like a white British man.
Yeah.
And so when they've come to work with him, I mean, one couple just turned around and said, wow, we won't work with you. I can tell you. So for me, none of this is new. And I think that's what is, for me, I've been shocked being his wife of just these things happen. And to him, it was shocking to him because he's from Nigeria. And so coming to America and then seeing the racial divide here is not something he knew, because he grew up in an all Black country, basically. Right. And so it's been shocking for him too, but everything that's happening right now is definitely not new. And I think what I do know is that when, I did a post on my social media, because I started seeing people speaking out about the protests. And it really bothered me, because a lot of my friends, white friends, the first thing they talked about on their social media was the protests before they talked about the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah.
And I was like, can we talk about that first? Like, it's what I don't condone the looting and the stealing. Like, that's not something I condone. I want to be clear on that. But first and foremost, someone was murdered that shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And I do know that fear causes people to react in ways that they don't sometimes know how to react. And I think what we're seeing is like so many families, like, I mean, he put on, my post was that he had put on a mask and he put a hood up and black face, black forehead, black mask with a hood. And I said, please don't, when you're wearing your mask, please don't wear your hood. And he said, why are you scared I'm going to get shot? And I paused and I said, well, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just silence. And the thing is that that's reality for so many families. And for us as business leaders, I think we need to, just like I talked about seeing our people for people, you know, we need to put ourselves in so many Black families' shoes, right? I don't know about you guys, but I've never had someone come meet with me and then turn around and say they're not going to work with me because of the color of my skin. Never. You know, but so many of them have. And I think it's really critical for us to just like can we just for a moment put ourselves in their shoes, in their reality, and then be a voice. I mean, we've got to speak out. And the thing is, and not just speak out, I mean, take action. I mean, and so I think for me as a, you know, I wrote my team and I said, our team is beautiful. And in college, I wrote this paper about how the best organizations are like a box of crayons. And a box of crayons is all different colors. Some are broken, some are dull, some have the paper ripped off. Some have had a really hard life because you can tell they're like down to the little parts, right? But when you put them together, they make a beautiful picture.
Oh, I love that.
And I told my team, I said, you know, that's what we are. And we're family. And right now we're linking arms. And our Black family members, I want you guys to know we're beside you. We're standing with you. And we are going to speak out and use our platform to speak out. And so, and not just speak out, but to really create action and to support one another. And so, you know, I pray that things like this turn around. You know, Lincoln, my son, came out white with white skin, which is crazy, and blue eyes. He's got all his daddy's big, beautiful lips and his nose, but my blue eyes, but my daughters are brown, beautifully brown. Yeah. And so for me, I want it to be different. So.
You know, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing. I had to take off my glasses because that made me cry. So I appreciate you. And, you know, what I know is that a lot of us are going to look to you as one of the business leaders to guide us down this trail that for me and a lot of us is new, Sarah. This is new. I did not know that a Black man goes to a gym and gets accused of being assaulted until just now.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Really do. And on that note, everybody, you know, this is a discussion that's not going away, thank goodness. And we're going to keep addressing it, right? And we're going to keep addressing how to lead big empires and even bigger lives, right? Both here and on our podcast. Certainly, I can't urge you enough. Please subscribe to our podcast. If you get on iTunes or Spotify, you just search Empire Building. All week we have 5 episodes that dropped this week, and then moving forward, we'll have 1 episode drop a week after that. So 5 the first week, 1 a week after that. And Sarah's origin story is episode 4. And I think they're all worth listening to, obviously, but that one would be a great addition to this interview today.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sarah, I can't thank you enough, really, for just absolutely showing up today and going there for all of us and
Yep.
in a lot of areas. So we really appreciate you. And I can't wait to kind of do this again and keep following the great success of your business. So thank you.
Thank you, Vija.
All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.